The song Dr. Worm by indie rock band They Might Be Giants is a trans anthem. It was released on They Might Be Giants' 1998 live album Severe Tire Damage. Though it was ostensibly a live album, Dr. Worm was one of 3 studio recorded tracks. Now I'm gonna get into a breakdown of the song and explain what I mean when I say it's a trans anthem, because I think people familiar with the song might be raising eyebrows right now. After all, on This Might Be a Wiki, the They Might Be Giants fan wiki, there are 47 entries on the interpretations page for Dr. Worm, and none of them mention gender. In fact, it's most often interpreted as being about a kind of sad and pathetic man who thinks he's a much better drummer than he is. When the band has been interviewed about it, this interpretation has been corroborated by both John and John. But before we get started, I need to issue an apology. Due to Content ID, I risk demonetization if I use the audio as recorded by They Might Be Giants. So instead, I'm gonna have to sing it. I'm not a great singer. I'm not a singer. So this might be painful. But, alright, here we go.
They call me Dr. Worm. Good morning, how are you? I'm Dr. Worm. I'm interested in things. I'm not a real doctor, but I am a real worm. I am an actual worm. I live like a worm.
Alright, now we've already established a lot of important things about this song. It's written in first person, me, and there are 2 other figures of interest established at this point. There's they, a reference to other people in general, and there's you. How are you? I'm Dr. Worm. In English, the only time pronouns have gender is in the 3rd person, when you're referring to somebody who's not in the conversation. English doesn't require you to gender yourself or the person you're speaking to. So because this song is constructed as a conversation, the doctor neither has to disclose their own pronouns nor assume yours. I'll be using they, them for Dr. Worm. So after Dr. Worm opens this conversation by defining how they would like to be addressed, twice, they say, I'm interested in things. And this song is about getting to know Dr. Worm. It's a conversation between you and the doctor. Cis folks in my audience might not immediately recognize how this relates to the experience of being trans. But every out trans person knows the experience of meeting people who insist on seeing you not in terms of your personality, your beliefs, your interests, but in terms of a question about the basic premises of your identity. Cis people usually have the luxury of avoiding that problem. Not always, I'll grant. For example, it's a well-known and well-founded trope of misogyny that some men see all women as essentially iterations of the same person, treating their experiences with past women as knowledge about women they encounter. One woman I know loves parties, but another one doesn't, and resents the pressure to go anyway. Becomes women can't make up their minds about things and they lie about what they like. In fact, this is actually the base structure of prejudice, literally pre-judgment, and every trans person experiences prejudice. Even well-meaning cis people often think they understand more about a trans person than they do, because they have questions where they're filling in answers that belong to a different trans person, or belong to media depictions of trans people. To be honest, it's mostly the media. This line, I think, contains the main thrust of the song, the reason I think it's an anthem. A lot of people interpret it as being just a kind of weird and awkward thing for a person to say, but let's fill in a little bit about how this conversation might be going. To me, it rings out as defiant in the face of a reductionist understanding of the doctor's wholeness as a person. If this song is a conversation, you have just ignored a clear effort to pivot off the topic of the doctor's identity. Even a subtle implication that the doctor's uncomfortable with the way you're fixating on that identity. I'm not a real doctor is a gentle concession to the point that there are identities that a person can meaningfully falsely claim. But after that, we have the song's first crash into loud, angry, insistent music. I am a real worm. I am an actual worm. I live like a worm. This is Dr. Worm setting a very clear, very firm boundary. Their identity as a worm is not a topic for debate, and it is not open to further inquiry. I live like a worm is a really clear statement of performance theory. That to be something in terms of identity is to act as that thing. You're not a real doctor if you don't practice medicine, or contribute new scholarship to a field of study depending on what kind of doctor. You're not a bus driver if you don't drive a bus. You're not a farmer if you never grow crops. And if you live like a worm, you're an actual worm.
I live like a worm. I like to play the drums. I think I'm getting good, but I can handle criticism. I'll show you what I know, and you can tell me if you think I'm getting better on the drums. I'll leave the front unlocked 'cause I can hear the doorbell.
Then the song returns to a lighter, more cheerful temperament. You can imagine Dr. Worm finishing that moment of frustrated rage, and in the ensuing shocked silence, takes a deep breath and offers an olive branch. Here is one of my interests. I'll even hold your hand and explain how it's appropriate for you to engage with this topic. I'm an amateur and I'm proud of my progress. And this is a topic you can challenge me on. Your feedback is invited, even if it's contrary to my self-concept, on the topic of whether I'm getting good at playing the drums. Then the energy of I am a real worm comes back into the song, but it's not putting up a wall this time. The Doctor is excited here to be able to talk about this thing that they're passionate about. You can even read leaving the front unlocked as a metaphor, saying, I know I just yelled at you a bit, but I'm still welcoming you into my life, into knowing me and being a friend. You know, because you made a mistake, even though you were very rude in your first encounter, Dr. Worm still doesn't think you're a bad person. Still wants to give you a chance. If I'm being honest though, this line still reads to me as mainly diegetic. Drums are loud and the Doctor wouldn't be able to hear you if you rang the doorbell. But even if we read it as strictly literal, it is still a significant gesture of trust to invite someone to come into your home without knocking.
When I get into it, I can't tell if you are watching me twirling the stick. When I give the signal, my friend Rabbi will play the solo.
Alright, so this is way too much information to be in an invitation to come over, so I think it's reasonable to conclude that there's a scene change here. This isn't the Doctor inviting you over to come watch a practice, this is you watching the practice. And I think that carries a really big, positive message. You showed up. Dr. Worm's showing you the cool flourishes they practice and wants to know if you think they look cool too. This section is honestly really heartwarming to me because it's really scary to make yourself vulnerable like that. To let somebody know that you think you look cool right now, because it's so common and takes so little for a person to take that joy and turn it into really deep pain. But this verse tells me that Dr. Worm has real joy in their life, that they're active in pursuing their own growth, and that they have at least 2 friends who care enough about them to spend time with them supporting that growth. You don't have to be the best or even very good at things to enjoy doing them, but a lot of people let their amateur skill level at art take the joy away from that and turn it into suffering. Dr. Worm isn't living that way, and because of that I think they're happier than most. This is also one of the 2 occasions in the song where somebody is referred to in the third person, Dr. Worm's friend Rabbi Vol. And the Doctor does use the Rabbi's full name, avoiding gendered pronouns, which granted is the most natural way to introduce someone, but also it's worth noting how consistently this song avoids ever gendering anyone. And speaking of which, let's talk about those stage names, Dr. Worm and Rabbi Vol. Presumably Rabbi Vol is not a real rabbi, but may be a real Vol. Doctor and Rabbi are both professional honorifics. You get them from having a particular job. Professional honorifics are the only honorifics in English that are not gendered. There is no honorific for musicians, so if Dr. Worm and Rabbi Vol want to avoid gendering themselves in their honorifics, they need to pick a profession they're going to use.
Friend Rabbi will play the solo.
Rabbi Vol's bass solo is the simplest, most mundane piece of instrumentation in the song. It's also the only diegetic instrumentation. It's possible to read this as a kind of mocking irony. Look how much worse Rabbi Vol is than They Might Be Giants at playing an instrument. And that irony is certainly present, but because I don't believe that being less skilled in a performance means you should take less joy from it, I don't think we need to interpret the Doctor and the Rabbi as being unaware of their skill level. Maybe they can't perform a feat of musical dexterity that would blow you away as the centerpiece of a professionally produced pop song, but it's not bad. It's musically coherent with the rest of the song, and they didn't screw up playing it. They have every right to take unironic joy in that solo. Just as you, the Rabbi's friend or friend of a friend, have every right to enjoy and celebrate that accomplishment in its context as an amateur work. After that, though, things do get heavy again.
Someday somebody else besides me will call me by my stage name. They will call me Dr. Worm. Good morning, how are you? I'm Dr. Worm. I'm interested in things. I'm not a real doctor, but I am a real worm. I am an actual worm. I live like a worm, and I like to play the drums. I think I'm getting good, but I can handle criticism. I'll show you what I know, and you can tell me if you think I'm getting better on the drums. I'm not a real doctor, but they call me Dr. Worm.
It gets quiet. Really quiet, like nothing playing. This moment reminds me of like 3 a.m. conversations with your friends the summer after high school, where you're exhausted but you're wide awake and your walls start to fall away. The first time these lines come up, they're direct. They're to you. This time they're quieter, softer. They're talking about their experiences. Not necessarily with you. They've had that conversation so many times. Doesn't usually go as well as it did with you. But now you've been there with them, there for them. You've met and befriended them as a whole person. And now it's not so painful to let you into those more fundamental, more guarded emotions. The fantasy of being seen by others the way they see themselves. The anguish of having your wholeness as a person overshadowed by one aspect of their identity. The fury in defending that aspect against bigotry and denial. In this iteration of the first and second verses, their identity flows directly into their interests. Without pause, without a loss of energy. This pulls their affirmation of who they are up into that enthusiastic, joyful energy of what they do, what they love to do, how they connect with their loved and valued friends, their dreams and aspirations, and pulls it all into a triumphant declaration of their identity. Because their identity as a worm was never not part of who they are, and its rightful place is in and among the things they celebrate and love about themselves. Not something that they have to justify or defend, not something they should feel unsafe to talk about. Dr. Worm is a celebration of trans people in the fullness of our experiences in our lives and our rightful hope to be seen as we are without doubt and derision. Obviously, though, They Might Be Giants didn't intend that reading. John Flansburgh has said it was inspired by the song Dr. Love by Kiss and the ridiculousness of giving yourself that kind of self-aggrandizing title. And John Linnell has given an interpretation that's much more in line with the idea that Dr. Worm is delusional, saying, I grew up with people like that, who lived in their mother's basements and had an idea that they were on TV and stuff like that. And that's all the song is really about. It's about somebody who has a fantasy and no one else will buy into it. And frankly, if it had been intentional, it would be really awful. 2 cis dudes describe trans people as worms. Ew. But the fact that it clearly wasn't written with trans people in mind at all doesn't make it any less powerful to me. I think it makes it stronger because there's no possibility that there's some secretly malicious meaning. And seeing sincere and self-aware happiness in a place where we might be expected to only see sadness and delusion stemming from a lack of accomplishment is an affirmation that the value of a life isn't determined by relative accomplishment or some sort of cultural consensus. It's about growth, self-expression, and meaningful relationships. And that's not just trans-affirming, it's also anti-capitalist. I've been worried about whether this channel is professional enough, polished enough, growing enough. I'm going to take a page out of my favorite trans invertebrates book and focus on the joy of exploring and expanding my own boundaries as an artist. Oh shit, I didn't even talk about all the weird gender stuff worms have going on. Do you I want to thank my Patreon supporters: Obioma Anamnachi, Marina, Jay Springett, Jackie Fox, Rebecca Solar Willpower, Tade McDonald, Nightwing Whitehead, 4 Comets, Zaylee, Nicole Wooden, and Chelsea Rose. Thank you all so much. And I want to extend a personal apology to Obioma Anamnachi. I'm so sorry. A personal apology is one of the reward tiers on my Patreon. If you'd like an apology, I'm TX Watson on Patreon. Please feel free to support. I also want to thank any of my TikTok followers who made it over here. As of recording right now, I have 8,000 followers, and I'm pretty sure the 40 subscribers I've gained in the last 2 weeks are you guys as well. I've said this before on TikTok, but that platform feels a lot more like YouTube did in like 2010, which was the kind of YouTube that made me want to make YouTube videos. Fast, dense content that wasted no time justifying itself. I'm putting stuff up there every day, and I'm still gonna make like 1 YouTube video a month, so that's not really changing. I'm also gonna be archiving the TikToks to my YouTube channel, particularly compiling the series entries into like single videos. There's also a Dr. Worm trans icon sticker on my Redbubble store. And also I have a Redbubble store. Bye.